Hey there, and welcome to That News You Care About, a weekly video game news show from the folks over at That Nerdy Site. Today is Tuesday, August 24th of 2021, and I am one of your hosts, Logan Wilkinson. Joining me this week is my Phoenix son, Trevor Starkey.
Hello, hello. You're doing that thing again. I noticed it in that D Plus show this last week, where like you sound like you're kind of like trying to stay quiet as to not disturb people in other rooms around you. So like you're not as boisterous as you were just very like toned down.
Oh, I'll bring it up. I'll bring the ampage up. But yes, this is That News You Care About. Welcome. Episode 69, I believe, Trevor Starkey told me correctly, is this week, actually. We thought it was last week. It's this week.
Yeah, no, that's probably right.
So shout out to that if you're into that. But we instead are going to dive right on into a kind of long simmering plot point here at That News You Care About. The resolution to, at this point, God, it feels like, what, 3 months ago now?
3.5 months. It was May 14th is when the article
3.5
originally went up. So it was taken down a couple days later.
Trevor. It is a statement from IGN.com called A Resolution and New IGN Policies, and it delves into the How to Help article that had originally been posted, like Trevor said, on May 14th, but was shortly thereafter taken down. It kind of goes into, it's really not a long statement, so everyone should go read it. We'll obviously link it in the show notes. But just kind of diving through some of it, right? They go into IGN employee councils and third parties and leadership kind of come to agreement that the post required adjustments to be made to make it more culturally conscientious. Wow. Culturally conscientious. Doesn't matter. Conscientious. Wow, okay. That was a tough one.
Conscientious.
Third time the charm. I got on the third time, yeah.
I don't think you did.
Of our staffs, and we'll listen to it and edit. And our staffs and audience potential reading. We regret the error in publishing without those adjustments and recognize that our process failed us. We are also in agreement that instead of taking down the post, we should have updated the post. And then it goes into the new IGN editorial kind of guide post, including having like the EIC and a wide range of senior editorial leaders be involved in future decisions, both on the editing side of things around sensitive topics, and any sort of post-publish either takedowns or tweaks or corrections or edits that are going to be made. And then it kind of concludes with IGN has been diligently practicing ways in which we can spread more cultural celebration and inclusivity. Wow, I'm really having a tough one today. And support humanitarian efforts through how to help articles like the one that have been taken down back on May. All of the efforts from supporting Asian American Pacific Islander communities in the face of increasing hate to standing on the side of Black Lives Matter movement to raise an awareness and funds around the horrifying COVID-19 conditions in India, or ultimately humanitarian causes. And the IGN editorial team is committed to using our platform for good to support the innocent voices who need it the most, is how the kind of piece wraps up. So yeah, we'll kind of start broad level, Trevor. Initial reactions when I alerted you earlier today that this kind of resolution had come out.
Yeah, so I had not been like online too active today, and you put this in the Slack, and I was like, I don't know what he means by IGN resolution thing. So I start like, I first I go to IGN's Twitter account and I start scrolling through their feed for like anything suggesting resolution. See nothing. And then I search Twitter IGN resolution, and then I see a whole bunch of like IGN staffers tweeting out this article. And this being the article, the How to Help Palestine article that went live May 14th, still has the URL how-to-help-Palestine, but they make it very clear that this is a how to help article, and they basically like just pull Palestine from the title. Obviously, they retitled it A Resolution and New IGN Policies. So like when I first clicked on the article, I didn't realize that this was the like all of the links to help everything down, because it starts out with like a 4-paragraph update at the top, and then you have to scroll down past that to realize, oh, they finally republished the article from 3.5 months ago. So after deciphering all of that, my like initial response is, I guess this is a step above never doing anything with it, but it's not really anything. I don't celebrate this as a victory per se. Admittedly, I'm on the outside. My limited experience with IGN was I wrote a handful of freelance articles, 3 years ago now or whatever it was. So take anything I say with a grain of salt on this, but I look at this and I hone in on, this is way too little, way too fucking late. 3.5 months later, we've had multiple different humanitarian crises that have come and gone since this, and IGN staff was basically neutered and couldn't do anything to promote or try and like push these kinds of articles again moving forward. The fact that like there isn't a companion article about Afghan refugees and stuff right now going on in the world is kind of indicative of, okay, their policies are more beneficial to corporate interests than to staff interests. But the thing that really stands out to me is that IGN Twitter account has not reshared this article to its 8.2 million followers, and they are leaving it to their individual staffers to try and highlight this and to try and highlight the changes in editorial standards that this touches on. So I obviously, this has been 3 months in the making from the staff that were really trying to drive this, and while I would like to celebrate a victory, I just don't see that in this. I like in the part you kind of read, and an IGN employee council with the advice of a third-party ombudsman and leadership are in agreement that the post required adjustments to be more culturally conscientious. I disagree with that vehemently. I disagree that the IGN employee council probably agreed with that statement. Like it was the original post, which has had very minimal in the way of like adjustments, was a humanitarian effort, and corporate interests got like ruffled because it potentially painted an image as IGN as anti-Israel or something like that, when instead it was trying to help Palestinian civilians. So their solution seems to have been, well, let's take Palestine out of the heading, and instead of saying Palestinians are currently suffering in great numbers in Jerusalem, Gaza, and the West Bank, they say civilians are currently suffering in great numbers in Jerusalem, Gaza, and the West Bank. So I'm annoyed more than anything probably at the end of all this, or like just in reviewing this and seeing this, like they swept it on the rug for 3 months, and while again, this is better than nothing, I guess, it's not much better than nothing in my eyes. And I'll be curious to see, really, from a more long-term approach, what does this mean for future endeavors for this team? Are they going to be able to stand behind other issues that come up as they arise, or are they going to have their hands held behind their back and not be able to really get out there and respond and act accordingly?
Yeah, I mean, I think those are all great points. I mean, I start off with the idea that, I'm happy it's back up, first and foremost, that this source is out there again. Obviously, I think there's a not insignificant element of the fact that 3.5 months later, how much of a pop is going to get again, right, from corporate side. So like, sure, put it out again. Like, it's no one's really going to notice it in the same way. They've made the tweaks to basically where like the only reference to like Palestine based in open paragraph is, recent escalations have seen a tragic loss of Palestinian lives, but otherwise, like you said, the other ones have kind of all been removed and turned into like civilians or, everyone there. So, I mean, I think that's unfortunate, right? Like, I don't think it is political to say that Palestinians were being killed. Right? I mean, we talked about this pretty extensively at the time, but it is not, anti-Israel to say pro-Palestinian things, right? Like, these are not like two things that are like tied together. You can only be pro one and you must thus be anti the other one. It's obviously more complex than that. And I think the idea that something that was done from a purely humanitarian perspective to highlight suffering in the world was just blackballed, basically blacklisted out of it existence after kind of the industry as a whole kind of celebrated what it was doing. I mean, I think is deeply disappointing at the best, and incredibly troubling at the worst. And I think 3.5 months later with this resolution, I feel largely the same, right? Like, I think I'm happy the article's back up. I think the biggest takeaway I have, you kind of touched on, which is, I don't know what this means for the future of the How to Help series, right? Like you point out, they haven't really done anything for 3.5 months. I don't know what they will do again, right? Like, I don't know how it's possible from the editorial side of things to ever think you can just, put a How to Help piece out there without in the back of your mind worrying, is corporate going to be okay with that? Or are they going to fight us on it? Are they going to try to take it down again? Are they going to be like threaten us again? Like, what is going to happen, right? Like, I think it's important to remember that this piece is live now after 3.5 months of incredibly hard work by the IGN editorial team to make it come to fruition, right? Like, after, open letters and, strong staff revolts and I'm sure countless hours of backroom discussions and meetings with corporate and editorial and EIC and senior staff. Like, this didn't happen over one conversation a week ago. They're like, oh, we should put that back up. Like, this happened because they were fighting to get it live for the last 3.5 months. And if they hadn't, it would never have gone live again. They wouldn't have changed anything. So I think a ton of solidarity and shout out has to be given to the IGN editorial team that made this exist again into the world, while also saying how disappointed it is that corporate seemingly fought them on it for 3.5 months. I think that we should, just as a species, not try to take down and attack and criticize humanitarian posts when they're put out there, right? Like, I just think there's a level of corporations thinking we're stupid that just kind of has rubbed me the wrong way since May 15th, essentially. That they just think that because there's a piece about how to help Palestinians in need, that we just naturally would assume IGN hates Israel, obviously. And it's like, well, we're not all stupid here. Like, there is a level of nuance that can be had. And I think there's also a level of nuance of saying, hey, suffering is suffering and a crisis is a crisis, and people in need are people in need, and that's what this is focused on. It's not taking any more political stance than people are suffering. If you can help, here's how to do it. And I think that's a fairly universal seeming message, but I think, as we've also seen, universal messages and themes and ideas are more often than not maybe lost on corporate ears, and I think that is largely what I've kind of taken away from this instance, right? Like, if not for the IGN editorial team, we wouldn't have it. And if not for IGN corporate fighting it for 3 months, we wouldn't, we would have gotten it sooner, and it would have just never been taken down. But certainly I don't read this message and be like, I feel good about the How to Help series, because I don't. I think its central message and idea has been compromised to some extent. And it, 3 years from now, I might look back and say, like, they really were committed to maintaining this as a thing and having corporate really kind of be removed from, doing anything crazy and drastic. But certainly right now, I have nothing to suggest that is the case. And I have nothing to suggest that will be what they do going forward, because I only have evidence to the contrary. An incredibly glaring example of, corporate overreach, to a level that I'm quite frankly stunned to have seen at IGN, but nonetheless, here it is. And so that is sort of my large takeaway from the broad level view of things.
Yeah, I mean the most interesting thing I am curious about will be if we get another kind of like article from Vice or from Kotaku or something, basically like interviewing IGN staffers on the record, but anonymously or whatever, and getting a feel for how they actually feel about this. Because I remember seeing a ton of the people tweet out in solidarity with the open letter that they did in response to originally taking the thing down. I only saw like a handful of people tweet out, "Hey, I'm so happy with all the work that went into bringing this article back." And maybe I admittedly I didn't spend the afternoon like
searching
scouring or whatever, but I typed in IGN resolution and I see a handful of like the handful of links I see are IGN names I recognize, but it's nowhere near what I would see if I had searched IGN open letter 3 months ago now. So I'm curious if there is a similar sense of frustration to what I feel behind the scenes going on with this.
I don't know how that's not.
Yeah. So, because I mean, like thinking back to some of the things they request in that open letter of like, we demand to know who took this thing down and that they take accountability for it. Like that never came to pass.
Has not been addressed.
There was never a public like outing of the person that actively went in and removed that article. It's there. Like somebody can go into the database and see like last updated, whatever. I mean, they could have at this point. But yeah, that's like, there's bound to be an audit log on that article that would identify that. And they just never, they never like came out with it. So it's like, if I were at IGN, I would look at this as not a victory so much as like, okay, I guess I'll hold off the job search a little bit longer or something like that. But yeah, it's I would still be very disheartened by the people the senior management at IGN that kind of like got behind the corporate interests at the time to kind of allow that. And yeah, like one of the things that they highlight in that article is the updated editorial standards, including a statement of autonomy saying that they maintain editorial separation from sister publications and parent companies Ziff Davis and J2 Global and the internal sales team. Sure, until the next time somebody writes something that like catches the ear of the wrong person. And I mean, they're still corporate overlords, so I don't trust this statement of autonomy. There's nothing but IGN's word to like enforce that at this point, and IGN's word showed
their word is not good.
That their word is nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm angry about this, and I had like forgotten how angry I was about this. So I don't even look at it. You mentioned like, corporations think we're dumb. It's not even that. I mean, yes, they do, but in this instance, I think IGN or the corporation in this case was relying on us to be on to the next thing a week later, which we were, admittedly. Like that, I mean, that's just how the news cycle happens, and that's how, like we can't just, the world moves too fast to have sat on this for 3 months and just been like every week, what's going on? Where's this post? Like, especially when you have in the middle of those 3 months, Activision Blizzard exploding with a lawsuit, which continues to develop. And it's not in our show doc this week, but like I saw, there was amendments to the lawsuit this week. So yeah, it's a gross industry, and this was, another example of it. And I don't think I'm not happy with this resolution. They renamed the article "A Resolution and New IGN Policies." I don't think it's a good resolution.
No, I mean, I think I would love to be, I would love to be at a bar in San Francisco and talk to the people off the record, right, and hear what they actually think about this, because I can't imagine, that many people are like, this is exactly how I would have wanted it to end, right? I mean, I think there are things that they demanded in the open letter that, like you alluded to, have just flat out not been addressed at all. And it is theoretically possible there will be a later post down the line that addresses them, but I don't know why you would split them up. I don't know why you would do it differently unless it's just hammering things out. I think it is incredibly disheartening. I mean, the thing that gets me really frustrated and annoyed is, right, this is IGN.com. I mean, this is the biggest video game, news site in the world, right? And if they're not free from, their quote unquote corporate overlords like stepping in on pieces and things for humanitarian purposes, who would be, right? Who is going to ever be free of those, shackles in the video game industry? And I think it sends such a disheartening, like, chill throughout the entire industry. Like, how can it not? This is the premier video game website, and they've been shown that that separation they've long talked about between, like, corporate interest and editorial is certainly a lot flimsier than they would want you to think, particularly in this case, right? And obviously, the Gaza Palestinian Israeli conflict is one of the more politicized issues in the world, but still, like, I think it just does nothing but feed doubts into kind of the integrity of the IGN staff, even though they've done nothing wrong. Right? It's just one more kind of crudgel that, like, the internet comment section can, like, hammer at them, like, oh, you guys flip-flopped on that, and it does nobody any good. It saves nobody any face. It just makes everyone come out looking worse. The people that are most impacted by it are the editorial staff, who wanted essentially the exact opposite resolution to this, but just kind of had to suffice for this because it's probably the most you could get from corporate at the moment. No, I mean, I think it's, for me, I look at it in the larger kind of industry scope and just think it's incredibly disheartening, right? And the chill factor that is kind of sent through other big outlets. I don't know how you can look at the past 3.5 months and say, I feel good about editorial independence at video game outlets now, because you just have evidence to the contrary.
Yeah, I also wonder, and this may be a little too cynical, but the decision to, like, throw this up in the middle of, like, Gamescom coverage, it just, like, screams, we're going to bury this because the rest of the news is going to overtake this within a day.
It's, like, to take out the trash kind of news cycle.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes, it is on the front page, but I basically had to scroll down and let the front page, like, add stories twice before it started popping up. And, half of that was like promoted deals and stuff like that they're linking to on the site. So yeah, I think
versus a banner at the top of the website for how to help.
Or right? One of the absolutely, a banner at the top of the website, or even just one of their, like, featured articles at the moment or something like that. Like, you scroll down and you get to a point that is like trending topics. It's nowhere on trending topics. Like, the number one trending topic is the Forza Horizon 5 controller. It's like, what the, whatever. Yeah. So I'm just, it makes me angry that IGN was, like, a place I wanted to work at one point in time. That, like,
both of us, that was the idea at the beginning.
Yeah, that was, like, the dream, and now the dream is so far from that. Of, like, like, the dream pivoted long ago when I realized they weren't going to pay anybody what they're worth, and shout out to the people that do work there and deal with freaking San Francisco rents and living with 4 other people to make it work for them. But I just I don't have that patience or that youth and that vigor anymore. That IGN, like, realizing the pattern of IGN of churning out people who are fresh faced and young and eager to, work in the industry right out of college or something before they've had careers. And like, I feel like there is an element of IGN that preys on those people, because there will always be people that want to work at IGN. Whether or not they're the quality that IGN should have or maybe deserves is a whole other thing, I think.
I think, the last thing I would say on that point is, God, yeah, I mean, God, that's a whole other can of worms almost. But like, it is that idea that, right? I mean, I feel like we've had so many conversations with both ourselves and other people that we know in the industry about the city of, like, IGN was the shining city on the hill, right? It was the dream for so long, especially if obviously myself and you are both people who kind of grew up in the, Greg Miller Podcast Beyond days of, IGN leading into Kind of Funny, what that became and how IGN infused it was at its genesis, obviously. And so to kind of be back in the day, right? Be back in, 2012, 2011, 2010 and be like, that's clearly the goal, to just be beyond with them. And how different that site is from, let alone 2010, but even like 2015, 2016 to now, how different IGN looks, 2018 from now, right? Like, it is something that I think these sites, and maybe not even on an editorial level, but certainly on a corporate level, understand that, there's always going to be people who want to write and talk about video games, always. And so they can essentially pay whatever they want, because the demand for those positions is so high that people will just be willing to do it for pretty much anything. And so I think there's definitely a level of, maybe not malicious kind of exploitation, but certainly an idea of like, no one is above being replaced because, there's 150 people waiting outside to take their spot, right? Like, I think it's just an instance of, like you said, where we were at one point in our lives in terms of viewing IGN to where we are now, right? And certainly, I can't speak for you, but certainly for me, like, I always have this soft spot in my heart for IGN, right? Like, it is the one that I kind of look to the most, maybe rose-tinted glasses a lot of times, because of, I think, my, decade plus at this point in time affinity for the site. I mean, even longer than that in terms of how long I've been going to IGN. That's almost 20 years, right? And so I think there's an element of that, but also that is sort of what they that's sort of what they want you to feel, right? Mm-hmm. So that you just kind of look past maybe the things that aren't as good. You look past maybe the way they treat their employees at times. You look past at the culture at times. You look past at the people who've been EIC at times. You look past at this kind of accumulated weight of things that aren't good about the company, and not from an employee level even necessarily, right? Who have been largely great people who've done great work in incredibly hard circumstances at times, but from just the corporate culture there. And I think it is incredibly disheartening to reflect on at key moments.
Yeah, I mean, even 4 months ago, with all the stuff they were doing for like humanitarian causes and outreach and stuff like that, I would have been like, well, I don't necessarily want to work at IGN anymore, because I know that they're never going to pay me what like I feel like I'm worth at my stage of my career and stuff like that. But if they did, if they had come to me with an offer, I would have been like, all right, let's talk. But now they could offer me a livable wage, but I would still look at things like this and be like, I don't trust that that's sustainable. I don't trust that you're going to have my back when stuff goes down. And yeah, it's just, I'm not interested in putting myself through that, really. So again, it's easy to say that, knowing that there's 99% chance I never would have gotten a job there anyway. But it's still like, it's frustrating and disheartening. And it is a place I'd worked for. It is a place I'd received payment from in the past, and I'd had interviews and stuff for other positions. But I kind of look at it now and just, I would much rather work in any number of other entities among the industry than in IGN, because I think I think they're slow to react in some things, and I think I don't think they have the backs of their staff in the way that I would like to see them.
Yeah. I think we will end it there and switch to the second topic of the show. This is one that is, I mean, it's essentially one piece of news, but I find it, I want to give some good news on the back of the podcast, and it's an incredible thing to shout out.
It is a much better piece of news, yes. And also, like I would say, obviously, like all of the stories we looked at for today were IGN stories. So like even we can even have like these frustrations, these gripes. That doesn't stop us like from recognizing that they do put quality work out there, and there are quality people there. It's just I don't trust the corporate nature of that company anymore.
Yeah, which is what I think we each try to stress. But this one comes from Wesley LeBlanc, which is how a disabled gamers initiative was able to raise $1 million. And then I like the little subheader quote of just, the validation of gamers with disabilities is important, and the games industry needs to keep paying attention to it, end quote. And it delves kind of into the incredible story of how over $1 million was raised from AbleGamers, and what he turned, I think it was 40, right, Steve?
Yeah, it was
Steven's Bond turned 40 years old. Yeah,
September of last year.
Yeah, and in that, his big birthday wish was, he wanted to help lead a charity drive to raise over $1 million for disabled gamers and the disabled gamer community. And they did it, right? In September of last year, so we're 11 months basically from then, and raised over $1 million. And it's a really cool, I think, because it is a long form feature too. Like it is, a good chunk of words there, and it delves into kind of the charity drive push itself from Steven, kind of what's next, how they achieved it, what they wanted to do, and the trials and tribulations, how like halfway through the year they'd only reached like $300,000, and not kind of the $1 million donation from Twitch. And I just think that it is a really dope celebration of an incredible cause and an incredible group of people, obviously led by Steven, and just kind of highlighting this community of gamers that, is only going to grow more and more and more and more and more. And one of my favorite lines about the disabled gamers, or just kind of the, disabled community in general, and I can't remember who I possibly first heard this from, but it's always stuck with me, was the fact that like every single one of us at some point in time is going to have a disability in our lives. And whether that disability is short-term or it's a long-term one, as just in getting older, we're all going to be disabled at one point in time. And so people like to think that, being disabled is this tiny fringe community of people who are, just kind of basically just cast them aside, right? They're not really important. We'll get to them if we can. Here are a few handouts and treats. When the reality situation is that every single person who basically is ever going to live is going to become disabled at some point in time in their lives. And the vast majority of those will be permanently disabled by some point in time in their lives. And that instead of just being this fringe issue, disabled rights and the disabled community is actually one that touches on virtually every single fragment of culture and society. And so that's what I would say makes this even more compelling, right, and interesting and incredible to like shout out and celebrate, is how much this will actually go to help so many people, and hopefully, help push the goalpost that much further in terms of what we can achieve next and what the disabled gamer community can achieve after this.
Absolutely. I mean, I certainly gave to this cause a couple times over the over the course of the year. I went through my like Gmail to see like receipts from AbleGamers and stuff, and I like back day one or whatever when he kind of plugged it and promoted it, I have a receipt from for donating back there as like a happy birthday to Steven gift, and then I like at least another one here from when Kind of Funny did a stream with them or in support of them, stuff like that. So it's definitely one that I was keeping an eye on a little bit more tangentially over the course of the year. But like I remember seeing that the article or the news video, the breakout of Dr. Lupo like partnering with Twitch to give Steven $1 million in support there in what was that in like a couple months in last year. November of last year. Like, and that just being like a cool thing. And yeah, I'm sure like cynically again, it's Twitch making a big PR move kind of thing to get behind that. But also, but like at that point, who cares?
Yeah, to their credit, we talk we talk a lot of shit about Twitch, but that is absolutely to their credit on that one. 100%. I don't care what their motives are.
Yeah, they didn't have to do it basically. And so it was so that was great, but I think really the celebration and why obviously Steven like continued doing it even though he had technically reached his goal there was bringing the community together and continuing to just like have a driving force to work towards to keep AbleGamers in the conversation for the year, just trying to strive to that $1 million goal. Just a really, really cool thing. And it's definitely something that I'm glad exists. I remember seeing his video kind of, again, September of last year, talking about the idea that like, I mean, the very real thing that, he could be kind of gone at any moment and he wants AbleGamers to outlive him and to continue to thrive beyond him. And with now $2 million kind of in their coffers a little bit here, that will happen for a long time. A nonprofit getting that kind of infusion of cash in such a short time is going to be incredibly beneficial for them. Assuming I think they're probably all smart enough to not say, hey, we got all this money, so let's suddenly like give out 100,000, specialty controllers or something like that. They're going to be smart about how they use that money and how they invest in it to let the mission of AbleGamers continue for as long as they can, with or without Steve when the time comes. So I'm really glad to have seen this kind of come to fruition. I'm really glad that communities got behind it. Like the article mentions, people like Alana Pierce was out there doing a lot of streams on the regular, among the myriad other things that she streams in support of over the last couple of years. And then, even like people like Brie Larson got wind of it and did what they could to help and support. So love seeing that, love accessibility. I think I'm having a hard time finding it back as I'm trying to skim through the article, but I remember seeing somewhere in there, like I want to say he quotes like 47 million disabled gamers. That's what I had pulled up from my yeah, there it is. Okay.
46 million disabled gamers in America.
Yeah, which is, I mean, like what the American population is like 350 million people total or something like that. I'm probably working on outdated numbers there, but like obviously not all of them are gamers, so this is like a third of the gamer population probably or something like that. So
it's a huge element.
I mean, and some of that may be, not invasive disabilities, but I mean, I always use subtitles and stuff in games, and that's an accessibility option. I appreciate that is becoming more and more common, and just like if you don't include that, people are like what were you thinking? Like, why did you not include something like that base functionality? But I think also, obviously, we've seen in the last year, kind of that going off of that pull quote at the top, continued interest and focus from developers, which is a key function of what people like AbleGamers does, what people like the Blind Gamer Steve Saylor does, like reaching out and consulting with companies like Ubisoft, like Naughty Dog, and working on those accessibility options at the beginning of the game. Psychonauts 2 that's about to come out has a wide breadth of accessibility options, because the conversation is it's if you are a game of that size and scope and you don't factor in accessibility, you are going to be taken to task for being tone deaf to that issue, and I think appropriately so. So I love that this affords them so many opportunities to continue doing the great work that they're doing. I got to meet Steve at a PSX a few years back, I think. One of them. I have like an AbleGamers shirt that is like PlayStation like all of the PlayStation controllers on it are like highlighted in blue. I've been a fan of their work for many years. So so glad that he was able to that he had the tenacity to like go for that goal, to set that big hairy audacious goal, the BHAG as corporate America will like to kind of attribute that stuff sometimes, and he went for it and he got it, and shout out to him and everybody who helped support along the way, and everybody who can continue to support, because I'll include the link for their Tiltify campaign in the article in the show notes as well, but it's still going. You can still continue supporting it at this point, because he's not 41 yet. Still got a few more weeks before the full year-long campaign wraps up.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you say, and really, I just wanted to kind of quote this excerpt from the article, because I think it's Stephen talking about, he kind of was asked like what the next 5 years hold, and it's just, quote, "Where we'll be in 5 years, I have no idea. I couldn't have told you I'd be doing this interview even a year ago. However, I'm always somebody who wants to figure out how to help the most people in the most efficient ways. And I think we're slowly figuring out how to do that. I think in 5 years, you'll see an organization that is raising millions of dollars, an organization that the industry respects because of how transparent we are with where our money goes, and generally, how we don't leave any ambiguity as to what's going on behind the curtain." And then jumping down, "I think that's my general advice for anybody out there who's currently looking at me as their inspiration to do something like this. Move forward. When we join this world, there's a lot wrong with it. And there's a lot of things that can be done better. And we can't fix everything. But you can pick a couple of things and you can make them just a little bit better," end quote. And I think, the legacy Stephen has created already is one that has immeasurably made the games community better, but also has actually made real positive impacts in the lives of thousands to millions of gamers across the industry, the long-term repercussions of these actions he's led. And I think there's just something so incredibly inspiring, I think, in what he does. And every day he just wakes up and says, I just want to make the games industry more inclusive, and I want to make it a better place, and I want to make it a place that is more welcoming to all kinds of gamers and all kinds of players. And I think this past year has been an incredible kind of, bookmark to the past few years of the hard work and the very kind of real slow methodical push that has been made by AbleGamers. And whether or not Stephen is around in any number of years from now, the impact he's made, I think, is already incredible, and is one that has definitely made things just a little bit better, as he said. So, and absolutely shout out to the goal being reached and the celebration and this article. Everyone go read it. It's a great article. It is impossible not to make yourself feel both better and also inspired to do your own bit to leave things a little bit better than how you found them. So yes, that is the show. Otherwise, we had one other shout out that Trevor brought forward. Trevor, what is your shout out?
This is, again, an IGN article from Rebekah Valentine, one of the great ones over there. It was, if the IGN resolution thing hadn't come up, this probably would have been one of the stories today, but it was going to be the turns out the hardest part of making a game is ... everything, where Rebekah, over the last few months...
It's a great article.
Basically interviewed and got feedback from nearly 100 or 100 plus developers on on the simple question of like, what are simple things in video games, or seemingly simple things in video games, that are actually way more complicated than they seem. And she did a great job kind of like compiling everything, bringing like compartmentalizing different ideas, and putting a whole bunch of things together. And just, there's a lot of great anecdotes. I think like over the course of, I think 3 days, I've been trying to kind of like work my way through it, and I still haven't gotten through the whole thing. I'm probably only like 60% through all the different stories and anecdotes. So lots of real good stuff in there for people's perusal. So go check that out.
100%. Otherwise, that's the show. If you like what you heard, you can go support us over at patreon.com/thatnerdysite, like all of our wonderful patrons and supporters have. Their support keeps the lights on and makes shows like this and like that D Plus show happen. Again, that is patreon.com/thatnerdysite. Shout out to all y'all. You can also go support us by going over to your podcast service of your choice and liking, subscribing, sharing with your friends, and rating and reviewing us on iTunes. Give us 5 stars. Tell us what you like about us. It'll really make our day. And then every few months, we'll actually go and read them. Otherwise, you can go support us by going to youtube.com/thatnerdysite, liking and subscribing the videos. Just leave it in the background while you cook. You know, let us know what your thoughts on Star Wars Attack of the Clones are. Probably not great, but I would love to hear it. Leave a comment. You can also go over to thatnerdysite.com and check out all the latest written features, podcast, Let's Play, all the stuff is over there. And then you can also go over to at Trevor J. Starkey on the internet to find Trevor Starkey. Trevor, anything you want to plug?
I will plug the current Let's Play series that is going up, or the current That Nerdy Site Plays, if I want to go with the actual proper branding that I use. That Nerdy Site Plays, I've been playing through Hades. It's on PlayStation now, and after it being one of my top games of last year, I dove back into it. Once I got my first clear in like the normal playthrough, I decided for a Let's Play series to hop in and turn on the God mode to make it a little bit easier, another accessibility option for you. And I've been playing through and basically uploading every run as a distinct Let's Play. And I'm counting a run from basically like going into the escape attempt all the way through whenever I die to going through the house and upgrading and talking to all the characters and stuff like that. So while the runs themselves are like 20 to 30 minutes usually, it's the all the interactions with all the characters and stuff adds a little bit to them. So they're coming in around like 40 minutes to an hour or something like that. I have as of this episode going live, there will be 5 episodes out there that you can see. I have finished the run, and the whole quest of the thing is to see how long it takes me to get an escape attempt. And so I've recorded and have uploaded, and like all of the episodes through to that escape attempt are ready to go. And it's just a matter of how long will those be going to our website. We usually do Let's Plays on Tuesdays and Thursdays because this is a series that I could kind of like work ahead on. We've been doing some bonus episodes that are going live on Saturdays and Sundays, so stay tuned for all of that. I made it all the way to Hades in run number 4, so I was feeling really good about that. That was and just kind of a peek behind the curtain. I definitely like cleared it. I beat my like previous record of, I think it was 24 attempts.
That's what I thought it was
on PlayStation. So it will not be 24 Let's Plays. It is somewhat less than that. So I would say significantly less than that. So, or fewer. So yeah, stay tuned to our youtube.com/thatnerdysite for those Let's Plays for the next couple weeks.
You can go find me at Lefty Logie or Lefty Loggy, Loggy on the internet. I also give that a shout out. Trevor has been doing God's work over there on the YouTube channel, and we're all very, 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 very thankful and proud of it and inspired by it. Lots of ideas floating around the YouTube, Twitch space. I will give a shout out, though, to the summer of Star Wars. It is winding down. Summer is coming to a close, and after 12 weeks, we have just one episode left to record this week. The day after you listen to this, in fact, we'll be sitting down to record the final episode of the Summer of Star Wars. where we will talk about Empire of Dreams, the Star Wars documentary that had come out with the DVD collection back in like 2004. Yeah, I think it'll largely be a discussion around each of our personal rankings and lists. There may be a surprise guest or not, who knows? But no matter what, it will be a lot of fun and a lot of confusion at Cameron Abbott's list, I am sure. Who he will have maybe the most eclectic one. Is Phantom Menace going to be in the top half for him? Who knows? Maybe, probably. Otherwise, you can go find That Nerdy Site at That Nerdy Site. For all of us here at That News You Care About, for myself, for Trevor, play your games and be good to each other.